and welcome to our Union Budget Special. I'm Aisha Sindhu. Today, India celebrated its 68th Republic Day. The Indian Armed Forces walked down the capital's iconic Rajpath, showcasing India's military strength and might. Now, the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, has often spoken of the modernization of India's defence forces and has taken measures to promote Make in India initiatives in the defence. Last year, India joined the military big boys club by becoming the fourth largest spender on defence. Is India spending enough to modernize its equipment? Is it spending enough on its soldiers? We'll be answering those questions and more on today's edition of WION's Budget Special. Joining us in the studio right now is Amit Kaushik, former financial advisor at the Ministry of Defence. Also with us is Major General Dhruv Katoj, former director at the Centre for Land Warfare Studies. Thank you both for being with us here on WION. I'm going to come to you in just a bit on our discussion. But before we do that, last year, India's defence sector saw some significant changes. For the first time, defence pensions were included in the budget, and major steps were taken to give a fillip to the Make in India in defence. Our correspondent Shilpika brings you a detailed report on the budget allocations for the sector. Take a look.
The Union Budget 2016-17 allocated a whopping $52.2 billion for the Ministry of Defence. Breaking a forever-long tradition, the Finance Minister made no mention of this budget allocation in the last year's budget speech. With defence pensions finally getting included in the budget, the defence budget went from 1.71% to 2.26% of the country's GDP. Interestingly though, the Parliamentary Committee had recommended that the defence budget be at least 3% of the country's GDP. We primarily looked into the measures that impacted the Make in India initiatives in the defence sector. Here are a few that worked as incentives for the industry. The withdrawal of tax benefits extended to direct imports by the Ministry of Defence provided a much-needed level playing field to the domestic industry as a whole vis-à-vis the foreign companies. The withdrawal of tax benefits enjoyed by the contractors of the government-owned entities provided the level playing field to the Indian private sector vis-à-vis the defence public sector undertakings. On the flip side, there were two clear disappointments. Firstly, the allocation for the DRDO, which is supposed to be at the heart of the design and developmental efforts under the Make in India initiative, was curtailed by 5.3%. Secondly, the new budget did not provide any allocation for make projects. Experts feel that fiscal year 2016-17 marked yet another year in which defence allocation was overshadowed by increase in manpower costs. More significantly, the manpower-centric growth in the defence budget began eating into the capital expenditure, which is key for modernization of the armed forces. The imbalance could be reversed by either making substantial hike to the defence budget or finding a scope for controlling the manpower cost so as to free more resources for modernization. It will be interesting to see what government actually comes up with to fix the imbalance. With Shilpika in New Delhi, this is Rinda Agarwal, WION.
Okay, let's get our discussion started here in the studio. I'm going to come to you first, General Katoj. What exactly is the current status of defence equipment in India, and are we modernizing enough, in your opinion?
It's very difficult to state as to what level of modernization has taken place. Modernization is an ongoing process, which is never complete, and it is always related to the threat perception of the country. As of now, when we are looking at our own threat perceptions, we have got internal disturbances at various parts of the country, for which I think the forces are adequately geared. But looking at the larger picture, from when you're looking at external threats, the threats which we face from from the western borders, from Pakistan, the military threat, or what we can face from China, both on the land border and on the seas, I think what our threat perception has to be based on that. So to actually give down a point of figure, okay, we are modernized enough or we are not adequately modernized, I really do not think it is an appropriate way to give any in terms of any percentages. But there are two facts which I want to bring to you here.
Sure, go ahead.
The first one was that ever since the Bofors scandal took place in the mid-80s, defense modernization took a very serious hit. And especially for when you're looking at the army in terms of artillery guns, since then till date, we had no new artillery guns even came into the system, and it created various voids in the armed forces, which have become increasingly difficult to fill. Now, the first time a change took place was when the new government took power,
Right.
And especially since the present defense minister took charge as the Raksha Mantri when Mr. Manohar Parrikar came in. And that is the first time when we saw tremendous amount of forward movement taking place in the effort to modernize the army.
Sure.
All that I would like to state is that while a great deal of work has taken place in the last 2 years, much more needs to be done, because it is not easy to actually cover the ground which has been lost.
So you're saying it's almost like a catch-up game that needs to be...
It is a catch-up game which we are playing because we have lost 2 to 3 decades.
All right.
And it is a very serious loss. Having said that, I think the present government, the policies which they are making, and it is a very proactive stance, which is a very positive development. And if we continue in this way for the next decade or so, then I think we should have made a great deal of headway in the modernization program.
All right, General, I'm going to come across to you, Mr. Koshish. You've been the financial advisor to the Ministry of Defense. Is the ministry using all the money that is allocated to the defense budget, and how effectively at that?
See, again, the money which is given to the defense ministry or any other ministry for that matter is under the revenue segment and the capital segment. There has been in the past very marginal underutilization insofar as the revenue budget is concerned. But by and large, the revenue budget gets utilized. The underutilization is limited to the capital budget, and unfortunately, the figures are extremely alarming in the sense that last year, I think about 12,000 crores were not utilized. And over a period of about 10 to 15 years, we have the cumulative figure is about 50,000 crores. But all that is under the capital budget, which includes modernization budgets and as well as the budget which is meant for acquisition of land and civil works and so on and so forth. So yes, under the revenue segment, there is no underutilization. Under the capital segment, there is underutilization of budget.
All right, fair enough. General Katoch, there has been a growth of manpower expenditure in the budget, as we've seen. This may eat into the capital budget, as Mr. Koshish is pointing out as well. When it comes to, of course, you know, the required kind of funds needed for modernizing the military at the right pace, like you're pointing out. It's not just about doing it, you know, at one time. It's about carrying it forward progressively. Let's have your perspective on that. And do you feel that there is a middle ground that needs to be achieved?
You know, when we're looking at the revenue, when you're looking at the pay and pensions, two things have come in now. One is the recommendations of the 7th Pay Commission, which obviously will lead to a tremendous increase in revenue expenditure, and also the payment which is made for one rank, one pension, the overall, that has also had an impact of 8 to 10,000 crores. Now, having said that, actually there is I think the problem is slightly larger or slightly different. You see, every year when the year starts, right, and the finance minister gives it budget, and there's a thumping of benches and all that, and he states the budget estimate for this year is about 10 to 15% more than which we have given last year. I don't want to quote figures. It doesn't really matter. Those it is about 3.77 lakh crores or 3.8 lakh crores. But I don't want to get into the specifics of it.
Sure.
Basically, what happens is that the budget estimate from year to year increases by 10 to 15% from one budget estimate to the second budget estimate. But when we come towards the end of the year, the revised estimate which comes in, we find that the monies have not been spent. Now, the question is, why have the monies not been spent? So the first aspect is the monies has not been spent. It gives an impression that adequate monies are available, but actually that is not the case.
Right.
Right. So it is not that there is so much money that we cannot spend it.
Right.
So there is a fundamental problem in the way the Ministry of Defense is structured in dealing with finance. Right. And I think those fundamental flaws, both within the Ministry of Defense, they need to be resolved.
Well, we've got the man who might be able to answer that question.
No, I would just like to just dwell on this a little bit. You see, in my point of view, you need a change in procedures, right? And you need various structural reforms within the Ministry of Defense. One of the things which happens is within the Ministry of Defense is that even financial advice is rendered at 2 different levels. One is Ministry of Defense Finance. And that is the first level of advice. And then secondly, after all that is done, it goes to the Ministry of Finance. So we are duplicating everything. So whatever is being done in Ministry of Defense Finance is again being done with the Ministry of Finance itself. The second part of it is that it actually suits the finance minister whoever the nation's finance minister is, regardless of the political affiliation, it suits him when 10 to 20,000 crores of money lies unspent, because it helps him to resolve the fiscal deficit.
Sure.
So when we take both these into account, I think people have allowed this system to continue. Whereas what is required to be done is we required a roll-on plan. That means we require a system by which all the defense, as far as the budget which has not been spent, should be allowed to roll on to the next year. Now they do not permit that. India's bureaucracy has stopped that on one very simple pretext. They say it is against the rules of business. That as per the rules of business, at midnight on 31st March,
right,
all the monies lapse.
Okay.
Now, I think that is a very dangerous statement to make, because we have inherited our rules of business from the British. The British have made their changes, but India is not changing. Now, why isn't India changing? We need to change our rules of business. They have not been mandated by God.
Right.
They have
So
not
there
been
is
mandated by
obviously,
religion.
in your
And
opinion,
it
there
doesn't
is a
even
lot.
yes, it doesn't even require a constitutional amendment.
So there's a lot that needs to be changed, in your
Yes,
opinion.
and
I'm going to have to go across
yeah,
to Mr. Kaushik as well before we run out of time on this segment. The General bringing up a number of perspectives on what he feels are issues facing the Defence Ministry and the allocation of the budget. Let's have you respond to some of those and bring your own perspective to the table.
Well, there are a lot of things to be said. First of all, the revised estimate is the true indicator of the expenditure of the year. It's not as if you, at the RE stage, the money is always withdrawn. Take, for example, defense pensions. Last year, the B figure for the last year was 54,500 crores. At the RE stage, it was increased to 60,000 crores. So it's not as if at the RE stage, money is always withdrawn. Even under the revenue segment, it was increased. It's only under the capital segment that the money is reduced, and it is reduced because it doesn't get spent. The question is why it doesn't get spent.
Right.
Now, it's a perspective. General Katoch talked about, the structural problems and so on and so forth, procedural issues and so on and so forth. But let me tell you that over the last 15 years or so, given all these problems, the structural problems and the procedural issues and so on and so forth, we did manage to spend more than 5 lakh crores on capital acquisition.
Okay.
At the same time, we were not able to spend about 50,000 crores. So now, there is something more to it than just the structural problem and so on. The last point I would like to make is that dealing with this capital acquisition budget, there is a perception that the problem is because of the finance division being there and the cases being sent to the finance ministry. First of all, there is no case under the revenue segment which goes to the finance ministry.
Okay.
Because the entire authority vests in the defense ministry. Even under the capital segment, it's only cases beyond 500 crores which go to the finance ministry. And it's not as if the finance division in the defense ministry examines the case and there is a duplication in the finance ministry. The case has to go to the finance ministry because the competent financial authority is either the finance minister or the CCS.
Right.
And therefore, it has to be routed through the finance division. Now, certainly there can be some amount of simplification of the way the things are handled in the ministry, but it is to say that everything goes wrong because there is this so-called duplication, it, to my mind, is not correct.
Okay, so there are varying perspectives on this as far as I can see. Both of you agree on some things, but